Hello, everybody. Welcome to Finding Brave. How's it going for you this week? I want to tell you, I had a massive dose of a belief shift that really busted open some doors, like within 30 seconds of having it. So my wonderful guest today, we're going to be talking all about beliefs and all about commitment and all sorts of wonderful things when we talk about what is heaven on earth to you and can you have it. Ooh. So hang on tight. But of course, first I want to introduce my wonderful guest, Martin Rutte. Martin, thank you for being here.
Pleasure. Thank
From
you.
Prince Edward Island, no less. Wow.
That's right.
That's heaven on earth, isn't it? So everyone, let me tell you about Martin a little bit. Martin Rutte, an international speaker and management consultant, is the president of Livelihood, a management consulting firm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Martin has worked with such organizations as the World Bank, Sony Pictures Entertainment, Southern California Edison, Virgin Records, Esso Petroleum, and London Life Insurance, helping them expand their outlook and position themselves for the future. He was the first Canadian to address the Corporate Leadership and Ethics Forum, of Harvard Business School, returning for 4 consecutive years as a keynote speaker. He's the co-author of the New York Times bestseller, Chicken Soup for the Soul at Work. With over 1 million copies sold. You know, I didn't tell you, Martin, I contributed to one of the Chicken Soup books. They're so fantastic. And your newest book is Project Heaven on Earth, the 3 simple questions that will help you change the world easily. So thank you, Martin. Can't wait to dig in. So let's just start with this, and we're just going to have a wonderful conversation. It's not scripted, folks. So I want to tell you, everyone, the reason I choose people to be on this podcast is I have a conversation with them and something changes in me. I mean, that's really the criteria. And we were talking about, our dear friend Charles Decker introduced us, your idea, your concept, your inquiry, your research on heaven on earth and what that is and what people think of it. So just start us off there, Martin. How'd you get to this? What is it? Tell us all about it.
Good. First of all, thank you for having me on.
I
felt the same way with you. First of all, I love Charles. You love Charles, and he introduced us, and it was magic.
That's a good sign. Oh, yeah.
It is a very good sign. So I'm a management consultant, as you said. I've worked with those large companies, spoken at Harvard, New York Times business best-selling author, co-author.
It's no small feat.
Thank you. And I was looking at the results in the world, and I wasn't happy with them. And I said, there's a lot of hell on earth. And what would be the opposite? And so this idea popped in my head. You mean heaven on earth? And Kathy, I remember thinking, whoa, you can't say that. People will think, you're woo-woo, you're I don't know what, And I mean, I'm a pretty straight businessman, but this idea grabbed hold of me as a vision, because as you said in the introduction, a lot of the work I've done with corporate clients has been on their vision. This vision really grabbed me, and I thought, okay, let's just see where this goes. Let's see, how do we engage with heaven on earth? What would that be? Not me telling you, because that would be proselytizing, but me helping evoke it from you, because my belief is you already know what heaven on earth is, thus the 3 questions, which we'll get to in a moment. But if I can help you discover what heaven on earth is within you and get you on the path simply and easily toward that, we've begun a massive transformation of the world. And so the subtitle, the 3 easy questions that will help you change the world easily, that became really intriguing to me. And so I talked to lots and lots, and I'm not a huge reader. I'm an interactor, relationship. Well, look who I'm talking to. Yeah. So I would say to people, tell me what heaven on earth is. What's heaven on earth for you? What's heaven on earth for you? And over and over and over and over. And I would come back and say, I'd like to try this on you. No, that didn't work. I'd like to try this on you. No, that didn't. Finally, I distilled it down to these 3 very powerful questions, which help people discover what heaven on earth is and how they can get into action. That's a little teaser, because what I'd love to do is I'd love to ask the questions of you, and I would like your listeners to also ask themselves the same questions. These questions are all on my website, projectheavenonearth.com. You can go there and find them, and obviously in the book. So are you willing to?
I'm willing. I'm game. I might give you some different answers than we did before, and whatever. I'm sure that's exactly what it's meant to be. But there's one thing, Martin, I want to loop around and touch on. I think you mentioned to me that this idea emerged in your mind as you were about to go out on stage. Is that right?
I was about to speak at a conference on spirituality and work. I was one of the leaders in that field, and this idea popped into my head. If we have every business in the world spiritual, is that what you want? And I said, no, that would be a stepping stone. If we can transform business, so think, 30,000 foot view here.
Yeah.
If we can transform business, we could transform the world. And then this thought came into my mind, oh, you mean heaven on earth. And that's what started it.
I love it. I'd love you to be a little louder, Martin, if you can.
Sure.
Maybe just come closer to the mic. One thing I just want to point out to everyone, you and I, Martin, talked about that I spent some time in Ireland with Lorna Byrne, who sees angels. She sees them. She speaks with angels. But one thing she said is, whether you buy it or not, it's something to think about. The angels are often whispering in your mind, in your ideas, but we don't recognize these great ideas we get as anything to give credence. So I just want to hug you up that you had this idea that you could have later said, that's interesting, and never done a thing about. But you knew it had, I'm guessing, it had the energy and potency that you went, wow, there's something here. So, tip number one, finding brave tip, here it is. When you get that boomerang of an idea, it's not inconsequential, it's precious.
Yes.
Act on it, which you did, wonderful.
Well,
all right. So
a friend of mine, Kathy, calls it the in-breaking. You can't pray for it, you can't think about it, you can't ask for people, but it just boom. It comes.
That. The in-breaking, it breaks into your mind, and it creates breakthrough. Yeah.
I feel that. The moment I heard it, I knew that's it. That's the next stage of my life. I had no idea what it meant, how to do it, nothing. Just that's it. So, you talk about tips. It's the that's it moment. So the distillation of the speaking to people are these three questions. And yes, let's ask them as though you've never heard them before.
And I'm going to have questions. I'm not even going to be able to answer it up front, which I did last time. So you're going to do what you do with anyone who questions, well, do I understand it correctly? All right,
yeah,
let's do it.
So question one, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on?
What comes to mind is the birth of both my kids. That I birthed them, and they were beautiful and perfect, and they were a culmination of dreams.
It's pretty amazing. I did a year of medicine, which wasn't for me, but I did see a woman give birth, and
it's miraculous.
There's no, the husband and wife make love, and 9 months later is a baby. Nah, that's just a story. It's a miracle, period.
It's a miracle. It
is. So question one, the birth of my two children.
Yeah.
Second question, imagine you have a magic wand. So I'm holding up a pen here, or pencil, you can pick it up. And with this wand, you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth?
And again, I asked this before, but our listeners are going to ask this. I feel there are two different versions. One, in the world itself, what I want, what I think heaven will be, and in my actual individual life, my business, my clients, which one? How should I answer it?
You be the leader.
Can you ask it one more time and let me get it right?
Yep. Imagine you have a magic wand.
Yeah.
And with this wand, you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth for you?
Then I'm going to merge the two. I'm having much greater impact and reach with messages that positively transform women in a world where there is love, compassion. I'm going to cry just even talking about it, really. Where there's love and compassion and an absence of tearing down people. It's all about loving and appreciating people and knowing that you are one with them and they are one with you. Wow.
Very clear. I'm going to come back and we'll circle back and go through each question. I'll make some comments.
Okay.
And the third question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours to move that forward?
This is going to be an interesting answer, which you probably wouldn't expect. But one of these eye-opening conversations I had today was how my own beliefs about the trauma women face is actually stopping me from it's in a way crippling the people I'm talking to, because I project onto them the belief that they don't have enough money to work with me, or they're going to bail out like some do. I'm actually crippling their success by projecting a belief of trauma that I may sense from them or might be my own projection, not sure. From that second that my friend Sean introduced me to this idea, I'm shifting that. So the short answer, Martin, is I'm going to hold these women, the millions of women I connect with in some way, in the highest regard and the highest belief in their strength. And I believe that that'll expand the reach I have.
Very, very clear.
That clear?
It's very clear and it's very powerful. Very powerful. You really went very deep into this, Kath. And I want to tell you, this doesn't surprise me in terms of the depth that you go into. People go deep into this, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But let's go through the three questions. So question one, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth, and you went right to it, the birth of my two children. What you did not do, and what nobody does, is say, what do you mean by heaven on earth? People,
what does that mean? Does everyone have a concept of heaven? Whether they believe in heaven and hell and God, and it's not a religious thing at all, is it?
No, let me be more specific. It's not about heaven. It's about heaven on earth.
But first you have to have a conceptualization of a heaven, don't you?
I don't know that. That's a very good question. You're the first person who's asked me that question. I don't think it's necessary. Really? And let's say in your case it is, because you brought it up, obviously.
Yeah, like first I had to go to me, because I do believe in seeing what's ahead of me.
Yeah.
Between lives, in heaven, all of it. And it's pure love, pure detachment from the ego, like I really know what it feels like for me.
Very good.
And then I had to do that and then bring it down to what it would be on this planet.
Very clear. Very, very clear. So question one, you went right to it. Right to it. And that's what 99.99% of people do. It's because it's what I call the already knowing about heaven on earth that exists within you. I didn't tell you what it was. You told you. Right? So this Project Heaven on Earth is not about proselytizing or imposing. It's about evoking, because the premise is it's there in you. The second question, the rationale for the magic wand, is to remove the necessity of having to know how. And if you don't have to know how, you can go purely, deeply, very powerfully into the what. So for you, love, compassion, no tearing down, we are one. You just went bang, 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 bang. Kathy, most people do that. They know what heaven on earth is. It's astounding to me.
Holy cow.
And the third question, what simple, easy, concrete steps will you take in the next 24 hours, is because I don't want you to just leave it at question two. I want you to engage. And the way you're going to engage in the next 24 hours is because of that conversation with Sean. Aha, you say, I've got that. I got my projections, hopefully all out of the way, but I'm going to now start treating women as though they are powerful and can handle their own lives. That is, for me personally, huge and wonderful, and clearly your contribution. So,
does everyone come up with Because if your answer is yes, I'm going to need to know more. When I ask people, okay, you just told me this is what you want. What's the one small thing you could do tomorrow? The micro step. They do struggle. They do struggle because I think there are layers of belief even in answering that question that get in the way. Well, I would quit my job, but I've got to pay, whatever it is. Do people, are they able to give you the instant micro step?
Let me do it another way.
Yeah.
What I've found is that the word, if you notice, the third question is what's simple, easy. I'm discovering something, Kathy, about the power of simple. If I lock you into the only action you can take is a simple one, you will tell me what simple is for you. And that can be anywhere from, this woman in Hawaii who just put her definition of heaven on earth on the end of her emails, all the way up to a woman in Austria, get this, who has taken on Austria being a heaven on earth country. And when I asked her why, she said, and I quote, because it's simple.
Simple to make Austria a heaven on earth country?
For her, yes. And so our job is to support her in doing that. Whether we agree with her or not is irrelevant, right?
You caught me up on one of the 5 million things that gets in the way. I thought she meant I'm going to transform it so it's heaven on earth for everyone. No, she didn't mean that.
She meant for her entire country. I would say it's similar to what, she did mean that.
And what will she do? What is she doing?
She started a wiki, which is a...
Yeah.
She started a wiki in German and English about projects that are going on, first of all, in Austria that she considers heaven on earth projects. They may not be called that. Then she's looking at other German-speaking countries, which is Austria, Germany, German-speaking Switzerland. And now she's going global. She's got a woman in New Zealand who said the same thing. New Zealand is a heaven on earth country, and they're going to be working together. I have women doing the same thing in Denmark, Hungary, Croatia, Austria, New Zealand. What am I missing? There's a guy in Japan, a guy in Mexico, a woman for Kenya, the Kenyan diaspora. Very interesting. Not people in Kenya, but people who have left Kenya. Brilliant. So now let me just, because I know this is aimed more at women. When I do a workshop on heaven on earth, there's a woman who said to me once, heaven on earth is the natural language of women. And I went, oh my God, Whitney, you're right. Because at this point in our human evolution, women get it. Women get it about heaven on earth. I've had women crying. I've had women sobbing because they've suppressed, to use your language, the strength and the knowledge they have about, I can make this joint work. That's my job. Whether it's my family, my workplace, my country, my world, good, unleash it. Let's get going. So
imagine if every tweet we saw that was hellacious and horrible and tearing people down, there were 2 tweets about heaven on earth.
There is, who did that? There was a woman once who did the same thing. This was several years ago. She said, for every negative one, I'm going to send out 2 or 5 or 10, I've forgotten her number, but every negative will be multiplied by a multiplier for positives. So, the other one I want to tell you about, which is so brilliant, we were doing this webinar. This woman's on, and I said, is there a suffering in the world that really bothers you? Yes, violence against women. And she was mad. And I've been to the police. I've been to the government. Nothing. What would you do? I said, well, I don't know, Susan. I mean, I don't know your financial situation. You could donate $5,000. You could donate a penny. Well, what difference would a penny make? And one of the other women on the call said, wait. What if everyone in your county donated a penny a day to help end violence against women? She went, oh my God. Kathy, they started a program called Making Change.
Oh gosh, how perfect.
They hand out a little mason jar with a picture of a woman, half her face beaten up, bruised, half her face bright, alive with the light coming out. They ask you for a penny or more, but a penny a day. You can't put in a check for $3.65 and say, that's my contribution for the year. No. A penny. To put in your consciousness. So they raised $2,500 in their county and the county next door. This is in Canada, in the province of Nova Scotia. They go to this group within the Canadian government called Status of Women, who give them $100,000 for each of the subsequent 3 years. And wherever she goes now, people's first question, what can I do to help?
I'm gonna weep. I'm over here weeping, folks.
What difference would a penny make?
What difference would a penny make?
Nothing, except if you say it does, right?
Now
So
I have more questions, Martin.
Shoot.
You've heard from probably hundreds, maybe thousands of people who give you the answer on what is heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Would you say that the majority of people talk about something that has to do with uplifting people or love or compassion, or what are the categories? I mean, I'm making you a researcher now with analytical data, but what would you say people say heaven on earth is in categories? There's more love, there's more care, people are better treated, there's more food. What do you think people are most often hitting on?
What I found is 7, and this is in my book, Project Heaven on Earth, 7 gateways. Mm-hmm. So for some people, creating heaven on earth is an internal job. I'll do therapy, I'll go and do artwork, I'll meditate, I'll write poetry. And the premise being, the more heaven on earth within me, the more it will show up in the world. So those are inner directed. There are people who want to live a global value, like you, love, not tearing people down. If that were a global value, when that is a global value, that's heaven on earth for you.
Yes.
There are those from whom the gateway is relationship, with myself, with another, with others, with the divine. There are those who are outer focused, the major one being a suffering, what I call a keystone suffering. There's usually one suffering that really gets to them: hunger, war, poverty, violence, migrants. And the premise is, if we can by ending that one suffering, all the others will collapse, because this is holding it up. We have those who are taking on institutions. What if the purpose of religion, of business, of government was to help co-create heaven on earth? What would that institution of society do? Then there are people who say, my nation, all the nations that I said to you, my nation is a heaven on earth nation. I mean, I'm doing that here. We're here in the summer on Prince Edward Island. I've said about 10 years ago, Prince Edward Island is Canada's first heaven on earth province. And I've been creating people, and there's a cafe here that has a heaven on earth coffee. There's a woman who makes tea, and she has a heaven on earth tea. There's a woman who has 2 jewelry stores. She hands out my 3 questions with every purchase. The Kiwanis Club, a service club, has a heaven on earth leadership award for high school and public school students.
Wow.
Yeah, this is my little laboratory here. And then finally, there are those for whom the gateway to heaven on earth is this here now, meaning this is heaven on earth, and our belief that it's not keeps us from it.
That one makes me take pause.
Yeah.
Am I not reading the tweets I'm reading? Am I not reading the headlines I'm reading? Or I'm not being facetious. Are they saying it's how you're viewing what seems to be just horrific? View it another way and it won't be? Correct.
Think of it this way. If you look at the amount of positive things that go on in the world every day, they are enormous compared to the negative. Enormous. The negative is a blip, and yet the negative is
what we
spotlight. Yeah, what we feature, exactly. And so an old teacher of mine used to say, think of context and content like a bubblegum machine. If the content in a bubblegum machine is called what works and what doesn't work, but the bubblegum machine is called it doesn't work, then no matter what you do, right?
I'm getting the 3 doesn't work coming out of the bubblegum machine, right?
That's right. But if the bubblegum machine is called it does work, then eventually the content, the bubblegums, will have to start moving toward more it does work. That's not to say that there are not hells on earth. There are. Part of heaven on earth is to clean those up. But there are also experiences like when you gave birth to each of your children. That is pure heaven on earth. Many, many women talk that way. Many women. It's miraculous. It's heaven on earth. There's no language for that.
That's right. Wow. I find this so enlivening. And I have to say, one thing that's so fascinating in and you do it too, talking to other thought leaders, influencers, we all have our own slice of heaven on earth in the way that we are intervening. And
Yes.
so a lot of what you're talking about mirrors for me what we need to do to live happy lives, period. One of those is accountability. It can't just all be the whole thing's a mess. I can't do anything. Oh, where is the joy or heavenness of that?
Where's the
What
responsibility?
can you do? You're here. You don't waste it, right? But number two, the focus. I mean, I think most of us wouldn't even want to get out of bed if all we did was look at how negative things can be. I think what gives us life is the idea that there is a possibility for a more beautiful future. But you can't get there if you don't focus on that, don't you think?
Both things. It depends on how you view the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of viewing of the world now. It's hopeless. It's fouled up. Nothing we're going to do will ever make it work. Okay, fine. So have a nice day. I mean, where can we go with that? But there are other people, who are saying, look, no. Our job here right now, right today, is to make this place work. What are you going to do? I mean, one woman I remember in Mexico City said, oh, simple. I'm going to smile at 2 people every day. That's my contribution to heaven on earth. Okay, good.
That's a simple
Another
thing.
woman takes on Austria. Okay, good. They're both the same. My wife said to me one day, well, you're doing heaven on earth. And she was involved at the point when she's speaking to me about this with a program in Santa Fe, New Mexico called Many Mothers. So a woman has a baby. My wife or another volunteer goes in, and the woman tells the volunteer whatever she wants. Look after the babies, bathe the babies, sweep the floor. Whatever the woman wants, that's what my wife would do. And she said, but look, you're doing heaven on earth. I said, but no, they're both the same thing. I can't do Many Mothers, no interest. You don't want to do this. We're doing what we're, and your job is to support me in doing what I'm doing, and my job is clearly to support you in doing what you're doing. I remember once I was doing a workshop, and this woman stands up and says, heaven on earth, I'll tell you, love. The moment we have more love in the world, we'll have heaven on earth. I said, okay, good. She sits down. Next person, a guy stands up. What? No, we've got hunger in the world. We've got to end hunger. Unless we end hunger, we're never going to have heaven on earth. And so they start getting into it. I mean, verbally, not physically. And I go, wait, stop. All you're going to do is to be right, that the other guy's wrong. What our job is to do is to support the woman in getting more love in the world. What our job is to do is support the guy to getting an end to hunger. That's our job, because that's what heaven on earth is for each of them. Good. How can I support?
Now here's a question for you. I mean, what we're going through in the U.S. is I absolutely despise you for what you believe. You know what I'm talking about,
Yep.
in every possible way. And I mean, I think that's why so much hatred and violence is bubbling up in every corner. It's been uncorked that I hate you. I hate you because you just said that about, who knows, the name that shall not be spoken. So what happens when, Martin, you think that the world needs, let's say, I'm going to go with it, never to let another person who isn't from this country in again. That's what heaven on earth is. And I say, I couldn't even live in a country like that. That's hell on earth. I'm asking you, what do you do when you're next to someone whose view of heaven on earth sickens you, and to you it's the opposite? What do you do?
I think there's 2 aspects to that. One is, let's take it really to the extreme. Let's say we're going to kill all Muslims. We're going to kill all blacks. We're going to kill all, let's make it really, and that's what heaven on earth is for that person. I cannot support that, period.
Yeah.
But those people are the minority in the world. Those kinds
they are, but what do we do when we're faced with your heaven on earth is my hell on earth?
All right, so
send them love, hug them up, and say, well, we're going to disagree here.
Well, the other thing that I've been spending a lot of my career on is dialogue, deep dialogue between parties who really do hate each other.
Right.
And there's technology now, human technology in the world of dialogue, that is so powerful. It doesn't solve everything, but it really begins to, when the 2 separate circles come together and begin to overlap, that place that the overlap is called the mandorla. It means acorn in Italian because that's its shape. that mandorla, that common ground, when it arises, is so phenomenal. 40% of the U.S., right, supported President Trump. That's enormous. He obviously spoke to something in them,
Right.
some kind of dialogue process, some kind of unification. I've been reading a lot as well about this program in Santa Fe that brings Palestinians and Israeli children together for
Wow.
dialogue, to play together. So to say it can't happen, the door's closed, the game's over. I can never accept that. Never.
I agree with you. And when you were talking, you know what I'm guessing you and I would agree with? If we were, I think where we disagree is in the how of achieving heaven on earth. But I think if we stripped it down and stripped it down and stripped it down, and you said, I'd like to kill everybody who doesn't look like me. And I say, well, that's hell on earth. If I asked you and you were able to say, why do you want to kill everybody who isn't you? There would probably, if they could articulate it, probably be such internal pain and rage that I just want to be loved, and I'm only loved by people like me, something like that. And
Marshall,
you could
Marshall,
we could get with that. We could understand that. Is that right?
you know a man named Marshall Rosenberg? He
No.
invented a thing called nonviolent communication, and he used to work with those kinds of hyper opposed groups.
Wow.
He was a master, and that's exactly his premise. There's a wound, there is a desire that is not being fulfilled. Let's find out what that is. That's not to say that that works for everybody, but there is human technology that can get us in there and begin the process of opening it up.
Oh, Martin. I don't want to end. I'd go on for another hour. What have we not talked about that you want to make sure listeners understand? I mean,
Well,
obviously, it's a call to action here too, isn't it, Martin? That they
the
answer
first
these
thing,
questions.
the first thing is that the possibility of heaven on earth does now exist. And on my website, Project Heaven on Earth, in my book, Project Heaven on Earth, there are 63 stories now updated on the website of people all over the world doing stuff on heaven on earth, which is so creative. Stuff that I could never imagine. The penny a day exam, a police officer who's written a 16-page manual, Heaven on Earth for law enforcement.
Oh my gosh. No, I can't wait. And of course, folks, we're linking down below to all of these resources.
Good.
I want to hug you up for another reason. You're incredibly busy, as I am. And so often these, I'm going to call them lofty in quotes. Yours is the antithesis of lofty, never gets done idea. But so often we have a calling in our heart. Oh, I want to do this. But what I deal with every day in every course and is, I'm so beleaguered by what's in front of me that I can't even carve out 5 minutes for heaven on earth. Do you get pushback like that?
I do.
Tell me what you tell people.
Well, I'm so busy. My whole life is about survival. I've got to look after this and this and this and this. And I say, yeah, that's all true. That is all true. And do you ever feel like you're watching too much television, or do you ever feel like you're on the internet too much? And yeah, I do. Could you take 1 minute a day, 1 minute, to do something simple? The idea is that if the impossibility is present and it's overwhelming, you won't move. What I want you to do, again, with this notion of simple, is find, as somebody said to me a couple of weeks ago, what's your simple? What's your simple that will start you on the path into heaven on earth? Find that, and it's easy, and start. And like the woman in Mexico, 2 smiles a day. Well, I can do that. Good. That's what we want. A penny a day, contribute to this job. Oh, I can do that. Good. Embed my definition of heaven on earth. This woman in Hawaii, at the bottom of every email she sends out, well, I can do that.
That doesn't even take any time. You've done it once and it's auto responder. Martin, if I don't want to deluge you with people, but if someone says, I love this, I love it, I'm just struggling with what my simple is, where do they go? Should they read your book first? Should they send an email to your team? What should they do? Oh, no.
Read the book, because, most of the things that you're going to ask, I've thought about it and I've heard. I don't mean that disrespectfully. And the book addresses a lot of that. If I still don't address it, You can sign up. We have a free 7-day Heaven on Earth course on my Project Heaven on Earth website, and you'll get a blog every week. I want to normalize Heaven on Earth. I want to be able to come to you and say, Kathy, what are you doing for Heaven on Earth? And you say, oh, well, I'm doing da-da-da. And you ask me the question. I say, oh, I'm doing da-da-da. That's a normal question. That's because, let me just jump to the big level. What we are doing here is co-creating the new story of what it means to be a human and what it means to be humanity. Namely, we're co-creating Heaven on Earth. Now's the time. You're the one. You have a unique contribution that only you can make.
You know, I've told you this. I want to turn this into a Forbes post in my spirituality and success series.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see what the Forbes community will do with this. But I have faith that we can demystify, denegatize, whatever the word is, the idea of heaven on earth, the idea of spirituality, that we're not talking religious, and we're not talking that I know what it is for you and you know what it is for me. We're imploring people to believe in themselves enough and believe in the world we live in enough that a simple task can actually catalyze, is that the word?
Yes.
Massive, massive change.
Matt, look, one penny resulted in $300,000. One penny. You have no idea what your might seem simple, tiny, quote, inconsequential, which is not, action can have on the world. But that's how movements begin.
That's right. It's always one person doing one small thing.
Who says, okay, I'm the one, this is the time, let's get going. Good, let's get going.
Oh, Martin, thank you so much. I'm so inspired. I can't wait to turn this into a Forbes post and share it every possible way. And folks, will you let us know, when I post this on the Facebook page, Finding Brave, we would love to hear what is your simple way. We'd love to hear the answers to your 3 questions, and we'll post them.
Yep.
Wouldn't we?
We absolutely would. We want to know your projects. We want to know what is for you.
And we'd love to support you in any way possible, because now is the time. It's sure clearly now is the time.
Yep.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
Can't tell you how inspired I am. And folks, we will post all these resources down below. So my Finding Brave tip is you are capable of making a change in the world, but it starts with the simplest thing that will fit into your life today. Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you, Martin. Come back again soon, and everyone have a beautiful heaven on earth week, a Finding Brave week. Talk to you soon. See you next time. Thank you.